Good morning, everyone. Can someone tell me whether my voice is clear? And is this screen clearly visible to all of you? आवाज आ रही है सबको? Hello. I guess there is some lag, I guess, है ना? Yeah, voice is clear or not? चलो ठीक है. So let's start with the first news. So as discussed day before yesterday, we were discussing about recently Financial Stability Development Council meeting, the chair of which was Honorable Finance Minister. Okay, and we've also seen that grouping, it's like a place where all the major stakeholders or all the major, organization head within the finance sector usually meets together to overlook what's the current situation of the economy is and how we can improve this, and if there is any issue with respect to the finance in the economy, we can improve it. So apart from the usual discussions, they were also discussing about formulating uniform KYC norms. Okay, and that obviously can be utilized across various sectors, be it insurance, be it finance, and be it banking, and be it any other financial services. So it is in this context FSDC appointed a committee to formulate uniform KYC norms, and the committee's chairman is TV Somanathan. Okay, make sure you remember this. This is very important, and it's highly probable that the question can come with respect to this. Okay, so TV Somanathan panel will give you directions on the basis of or on uniform KYC norms. Okay. So this is the first news. Next news is India may face 10% value added tax under carbon border adjustment mechanism. Okay. So carbon border adjustment mechanism, we've already seen that how CBAM, it's like a deterrent against various exports from developing countries. So naturally, in the garb of environmental protection or in the garb of achieving their net neutrality target by 2050, European Union has started this carbon border adjustment mechanism, the idea behind which is that they will tax various exports from developing countries, especially from industries that are highly carbon intensive, isn't it? So naturally, developing countries were very furious with respect to this. So they thought that they are actually, the Western nations are utilizing this to reduce export from developing countries, and they do not want to develop these countries. Okay, so they naturally opposed it, not only overall, and they also opposed it opposed it in WTO as well. Okay? And this report by Asian Development Bank, they called it, and they actually come up with the figure that says that developing countries, from the future, they will be taxed approximately 10% more on their exports if they are from intensive industries, carbon intensive industries. So naturally, for example, if steel exports that you're doing, if it says like it is 1 CR per metric ton, then naturally your cost will become equivalent to 1.1 CR per metric ton when they will enter into European Union, because they will be attracting 10% taxation. Okay? And when the carbon border adjustment mechanism was started at the initial time, so we've also discussed this in the previous news as well, that approximately how many industries carbon border adjustment mechanism will be applicable. Does anyone know? How many of you know approximately how many sectors or how many industries these carbon border adjustment mechanism will be applicable? Any idea? Take a guess at least. So if I give you options 7, 8, 9. Yes, Saurabh, correct. 7 is the correct answer. Okay, just keep on revising your previous year or the news which you are reading. Okay, revision ke bina you will do such mistakes, so make sure you do not do this. Okay, so this is the taxation, 10.5% value added tax, that this will be applicable on them. Okay, and this all of you know that CBAM will be applicable from 2026. Okay, the next news is regarding a passenger vehicle report, okay, by CRISIL, which talks about that SUV will constitute 62% of the sale of passenger vehicles in 2024-25. That if 100 vehicles will be sold in India, 62 will be SUVs. That is what CRISIL is claiming. This will happen in 24-25. Okay? And this is a normal thing which every one of you also must recognize, that nowadays a lot more people are focusing upon that instead of taking a hatchback, they'll just go to the SUV. And a lot of companies are also focusing upon this SUV segment a lot more. Every company that is performing in India, they all have huge 2 to 3 products lined up in SUV segment only. Whether you take, let's say Brezza and let's say, S-Cross of Maruti Suzuki, or you take Creta of Hyundai and, Seltos of Kia and all those things. Okay? So in line with that, you can see SUV segment has been on rise. Now let's move on to next thing. So this is in context of the recent consumption expenditure survey that we've discussed in the previous news session, which talked about that how consumption behavior of people have changed from 2011 till 2022-23, है ना? पिछली बार हम लोगों ने देखा था. We've also seen various per capita income of rural consumption as well as and per capita monthly expenditure of urban areas as well. So it is in this context Niti Aayog chief also talks about various things. So what did he say? He said that less than 5% of Indians expected to be below poverty line on the basis of data from Household Consumption Expenditure Survey. Okay, in context of inclusive growth, it says that growth is broad-based and inclusive, and rural incomes and expenditure rising faster than urban peers. And this is mostly because of the low base effect. Okay, low base effect is what? You always measure the growth from the previous year, and when the previous year is too much low, okay, then even if you grow this much, then the growth rate is very high. Okay, but whereas in urban areas, if the base is this, and even if you grow more than the rural in absolute terms, the growth rate is very low. So that's why they are saying that rural Indian income and expenditure rising faster than urban peers. It's not like they're talking in absolute terms, they're talking in the terms of growth rate. Okay? Next is in context of urban rural inequality. So they're saying the gap in consumption expenditure between urban and rural has reduced from 91% to 71%. That means if the urban is doing more than rural, previously urban was doing more than 91% more than rural, now it is only doing 71% more than rural. So this tells you that the gap between both the areas in terms of consumption expenditure has been consistently reducing. Okay? Make sure to utilize this data whenever we are talking in positive or in favor of income, reducing income inequality in India. Okay? आपके पास income inequality का topic is always there, and it is universally important in context of descriptive paper in any examination. Okay? You all have various points regarding how much income inequality is higher in various countries, but such type of points which actually tells you about that income inequality is reducing in India, okay, you must utilize it. Okay? Next is consumption trends, shift in spending patterns. Okay, so lower spending on food relative to other goods, increased expenditure on durable goods like TV, fridge, mobile phones and cars, consumption of processed food, beverage, milk and fruits rising, indicating diverse and balanced food consumption. Okay, so this is self-explanatory, but this is the metric that you need to remember. Next is in context of e-rupees. So e-rupee is a central bank digital currency. The pilot phase is currently going on, and if I ask you something related to e-rupee, which we've discussed in the previous Monetary Policy Committee report in February, in the statement of regulatory developments, the Reserve Bank of India talked about successful first phase regarding CBDC. Then it also talked about two things that they will be, at least experimenting upon in context of e-rupee. Can anybody, remember? Does anybody remember what was those two things were? In context of e-rupee, first of all, they focused on B2B transactions and B2C transactions, in which they recognize that this is successful, at least in context of this. Now they've talked about that they will be experimenting on two things. What were those two things? And this was announced by Reserve Bank of India Governor in the recently Monetary Policy Committee meeting. आप में से कितने लोगों ने वो लेक्चर देखा था? what were the changes, आप लोग खुद सोचें ना, what were the changes that RBI was suggesting that they will be incorporating in e-rupee so that it becomes much more usable for customer in general, apart from obviously checking whether it is able to do B2B and B2C transactions. Any guesses at least? अगर मान लो एग्जाम में एक क्वेश्चन आ रखा है, so what will you do? Will you leave the question blank? Think logically, try something. What are the features that you would want to provide to e-rupee if you want to make sure that its usage increase in all parts of India? चाहे वो अर्बन हो, चाहे वो रूरल हो, चाहे वो hinterlands क्यों ना हो. I'm giving you a hint, even to make sure that this functions in rural areas, what are the functionality you want to include in e-rupee? Very good, बहुत बढ़िया. Think about on these conditions. So RBI also wanted to include offline functionalities within e-rupee. Okay, so when you provide subsidies to, various beneficiaries, and if you're providing subsidies in form of e-rupee, so what are the things that you can introduce within e-rupee so this subsidy cannot be misused? Tell me, when you give subsidies in form of e-rupee, what is the critical thing that you can introduce within that e-rupee that prevents it from misuse, or that only enable that the customer or the beneficiary should use it only for the purpose of whatever this subsidy is provided to. We call it programmability. ठीक है? If e-rupee is provided alongside its use case, yes Matthew, correct. ठीक है? Programmability. So it is in this context only this news is all about. Okay, so please remember these two very critical things. So it is in context of UPI, it is saying that UPI already provides similar functionalities as e-rupee, including ease of use and anonymity, but below transactions of 1 lakh rupees, those of domestic or retail nature, anonymity might not be a significant factor. और 1 लाख के नीचे anonymity रखो ना रखो इससे कोई फर्क पड़ता नहीं. 1 लाख के ऊपर anonymity नहीं होनी चाहिए, because that can be utilized for various illegal purposes, for example money laundering and all those things. ठीक है. Next, in continuance of consumption expenditure data only. Okay, so these are a little bit of further trends alongside the trends we've discussed in the previous lecture, which says that it reveals a shift in composition of food expenditure among Indians. So decline in share of food items we've already seen, shifting focus from food grains to animal and horticulture products. That means Indians spending more on milk, fruits and vegetables compared to food grains. Growth in expenditure on eggs, fish, meat observed across both rural and urban households. Demand for legal guarantee to MSP, mainly from farmers of traditional crops like food grains and sugarcane. An average monthly per capita expenditure of self-employed agricultural households recorded at 3,000 from overall rural household average of 4,771. ठीक है. Another thing is, according to Niti Aayog CEO, which we've already seen, that how much poverty is already declined. Next is for RERA, Rural Real Estate Regulatory Authority. The news is for all the transactions RERA will be doing. Okay, RERA will not be liable to pay GST. Next is National Committee on Transmission approves interstate transmission projects. Okay, which only talks about that, all of you know, with respect to electricity transmission, okay, for various projects electricity transmission is, this is intrastate transmission, and if any projects arrive that allows you to do the transmission, that means the source is at Karnataka and let's say the electricity is being utilized in Rajasthan. So this is what we call interstate transmission. Okay. So the government of India has approved 4 new interstate transmission systems valued at 1,736 crores. Okay. And the tender has been provided to Power Grid Corporation, Adani Energy Solutions and REC Power Development and Consultancy Limited. And you can see the projects span across Karnataka, Gujarat and Rajasthan. Okay, and these are the further details with respect to that who will be doing and who will be developing what transmission system at what place. So you can see Power Grid will be developing Tumkur pooling station in Karnataka. Adani will be developing pooling stations in Gujarat. Lakadia substation in Rajasthan also approved for capacity enhancement. Okay. Additional transmission system approved for Bhadra pooling station. And the project execution will be done via tariff-based competitive bidding. Okay. So tariff-based competitive bidding is how much tariff, the more tariff will be provided or the more revenue will be provided to the government, it will be based on that only, and the projects will be given on the basis of that only. Next is decrease in mergers and acquisition deals in India 2023. So this is the report by PwC, which says that in context of mergers and acquisition, we have seen the number of them in reducing by 10% annually to 793 in 2023. Okay, and what do you think could be the various reasons associated with it? क्या लगता है आपको? What can be the various reasons because of which the mergers and acquisitions have been reducing in 2023? Anyone? Malpractices? नहीं, मतलब not the major reason, could be associated with very few reasons. Financial stability, be specific. It's a very broad term. What do you need to acquire any company? Everyone, what do you need? What is the basic thing that you need to acquire any company? किसी कंपनी को खरीदने के लिए क्या चाहिए? कैपिटल. और एक बात बताओ, was capital freely available during 2022-2023 financial year? What was the situation of capital during that financial year? As opposed to obviously the previous 2021 financial year. There was this term that became very famous at that particular point of time. Okay, because mergers and acquisition usually happen in context of startups ecosystem, है ना? Startups अपना growth करने के लिए they acquire a lot of companies and they acquire obviously through the capital of VCs or the capital which they have raised. Okay, and because there was funding winter and a lot of startups focused on profitability instead of growth and expenditure, that's why you realize the decrease in mergers and acquisition in 2023. Is this clear to everyone? Okay? Try to utilize the logic and try to utilize the macroeconomic situations with respect to the happenings in microeconomics. Then you will be able to much better understand how the economics and how both type of economics play or have interplay amongst each other. Now let's focus on national and state news. So Prime Minister inaugurates railway infrastructure projects worth 41,000 crores. Okay? He emphasized that these projects are a symbol of work culture of New India. He inaugurated 554 station redevelopment projects under Amrit Bharat station scheme. Okay, launched 1500 road overbridges. Inaugurated Gomti Nagar station in Uttar Pradesh. And this Amrit Bharat station scheme is to upgrade passenger facilities at selected stations, including foot overbridge, frontage improvement, waiting areas, and all those things. Okay. Next is Adani Green Hydrogen Unit. H2 is hydrogen only. Okay. So in order to develop its hydrogen unit, Adani Industries is thinking about loan. And the loan is up to $3 billion. Okay, so they are thinking about taking this loan via offshore loans. That means they will be taking or raising this loan from outside India. And these are the banks that Adani is right now in discussion with: DBS, Deutsche, First Abu Dhabi Bank, ING and MUFG, Standard Chartered. Next is Maharashtra, one of the most successful states in implementation of Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. Okay? Please remember this. This is a very important news. As all of you know that Prime Minister Fasal Bima Yojana is a flagship scheme in context of crop insurance, which was initially launched in August 2016 or Kharif 2016 season. Okay, and it provides insurance against losses due to various natural and other risks. Okay, and the Maharashtra is recognized as the topmost state in context of implementation of Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. And this is a little bit detailed with respect to how much enrollment has happened in context of Maharashtra. 846 lakh farmer applications enrolled in Maharashtra since scheme inception. Premium paid by farmers 5,000 crores. Claims paid by the government 27,000 crores. Okay? And these are the coverage and implementation. All food crops, oilseed and commercial horticulture crops are over there. Okay? And if I ask you, in context of Rabi, Kharif and horticulture or commercial crops, how much premium does farmer has to pay? Anyone? In Fasal Bima Yojana? How many of you have studied Prime Minister Fasal Bima Yojana? As all of you know that in order to have a cover of insurance, you need to pay premium. But because that premium is subsidized by the government, but some percentage still have to be paid by the farmers. And what is that percentage for Rabi crops, Kharif crops and horticulture commercial crops? Anyone? %2 for what? For which crops? Yeah, Rabi 1.5, Kharif 2 and horticulture 5%. Okay? Let's move on to the next news, which is Indira Gandhi National Center for Arts has released Language Atlas Initiative. Okay? So this Language Atlas Initiative will help in documenting India's linguistic diversity. Okay, so they'll be jotting down all the important languages that are still active. That means people are still speaking that languages in India. Okay, and right now 22 officially recognized languages are there in India in Schedule 8 of the Indian Constitution. Okay, and as per 2011 census, it says that 99 non-scheduled languages still exist in India with around 37.8 million speakers. Now let's say in this census how many languages come, or at least from this initiative, Language Atlas Initiative, how many new languages are documented. Navi Mumbai Airport is set to launch in March 2025. Next is NHAI debt prepayment plan. As all of you know that NHAI, because it is continuously constructing a lot of road network all over India, so it naturally has huge amount of debt. So what the government is saying, instead of raising more debt, we will first prepay the existing debt, okay, and then we will go for raising another set of debt for another construction of road network. So that's what they are saying, that they have suspended fresh borrowings for 2 years. They are now considering prepaying some of 13.4 trillion debt to strengthen highway network and reduce interest payments. जब आपके पास 13.4 trillion का लोन है, तो imagine interest payment कितना होगा? It will be in some 1,000 crores only. So that's why the government is saying we need to first of all reduce the debt so as to reduce interest payments, and this will naturally be reducing their overall debt also, because think about it, that if your NHA one institution is having 13.4 trillion, तो overall government debt कितना होगा? Next is Department of Telecommunication is funding for chip design projects. Okay, so they'll be launching 6 chip design projects this year under Telecom Technology Development Fund. And the value of these projects is estimated at 50 to 100 crores. Okay, and this anyways will be involving development of various products, for example, chip for dongles, IoT products, satellite communication equipment for 5G infrastructure. So in order to implement this, okay, they have received over 200 applications for development of the same thing that we've discussed earlier. Next is international news. So Sweden has been allowed entry into NATO. So this is a very huge thing because it actually is a departure from Sweden's 200 years of neutrality. Okay? So Finland was 31st member and now Sweden has become 32nd member of NATO. So NATO, as all of you know, it's a security alliance of 30 countries and now 32 countries, okay, led by USA, and it's an alliance between North America and Europe. The genesis of NATO was during Cold War to act as a deterrent against former USSR. Okay? The headquarters of NATO is at Brussels, Belgium. Next is Maryam Nawaz, as all of you know, daughter of former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. So she has become the first woman to become Chief Minister of a province. So she has become a Chief Minister of Punjab. Okay? Next is about India's export or rice aid to African nations, because these African nations are suffering from food insecurity because of various reasons, for instance civil war or internal disturbances. Okay, so India's rice aid will be benefiting Guinea-Bissau, Djibouti and Tanzania. Okay, so India will be donating approximately 110,000 tons of rice. Okay, and this is India doing despite export restrictions, and export restrictions are obviously on account of ensuring that there is enough availability of rice in the domestic market. Next is addressing Red Sea crisis and India's trade route. So it was an opinion piece which talked about the current ongoing Red Sea crisis, and the Red Sea crisis, the main reason behind current Red Sea crisis is what? Does anyone remember? We've discussed this in previous classes also. What is causing the Red Sea crisis? Anyone? Yes, pirates attack. So does this have any impact on Indian exports or Indian cross-border trade? रेड सी के चक्कर में कोई इम्पैक्ट पड़ा क्या हमारी ट्रेड पर? Saptarshi says yes. And how can you say this? If you're saying this, then I can definitely say that you did not see the lecture in which we've discussed one news where it says that India's merchandise trade continued to increase even though by 1% in December, which told us that Red Sea issues did not impact much on India's exports. ठीक है, ये न्यूज़ भी हम लोगों ने पढ़ी थी. So how many of you remember this? this news. है ना? तो न्यूज़ अगेन आई एम सेइंग, आप लोग रिवाइज करते रहिए बिना रिवीजन के, you will get confused. But let's see what the news was saying. That news was saying that despite, even though monthly there was no change, but long term, if this if this issue hasn't been resolved, then it can create problems. So what are the various options for various countries to circumvent this issue? And these were the various options. Belt and Road Initiative, okay, China Europe freight trains, और इंडिया मिडिल ईस्ट यूरोप इकोनॉमिक कॉरिडोर. ठीक है? सो चाइनाज बेल्ट एंड रोड इनिशिएटिव, एज ऑल ऑफ यू नो, इंडिया मिडिल ईस्ट यूरोप इकोनॉमिक कॉरिडोर वाज अनाउंस्ड ड्यूरिंग G20 समिट. ठीक है? इफ दिस गेट सक्सेसफुल तो फिर कोई दिक्कत आएगी नहीं, बिकॉज एज ऑल ऑफ यू नो, इफ यू सी द मिनिएचर ऑफ द वर्ल्ड, so right now the trade route is through this, and if European Middle East economic corridor started, then it can go from directly here. Okay? Next is MOUs or conferences. So BioAsia Conference 2024 with the theme of transforming life sciences with data and AI has been happening in Hyderabad for 3 days. Next is Reliance Industries and Disney merger pact. Okay, so they have both signed binding pact signed to merge their media operations in India. Okay, so what this will be doing? Reliance and affiliates expect to hold at least 61% merged entity. So that means Hotstar Disney you will not be seeing anymore, and maybe Jio Disney you will be seeing recently. Okay? Next is Army's utilization of MSMEs and startup via IDEX route. So innovation in defense procurement excellence route. Through this route, Army will be engaging MSMEs and startups for projects worth 400 crores. ठीक है? तो in context of this, Vidyut Rakshak, it's an IoT based generator protection system and a biomedical device. Okay, these two projects will be launched by Army and they will be utilizing MSMEs and startups for production of this. Okay, and Maharashtra Defense Manufacturing Policy are also commended by Army personnel. So in previous news, we've also seen that because of this defense manufacturing policy, Maharashtra chosen how many cities for defense corridor? Everyone. There were 4 defense clusters. Okay? They will be developed in Nagpur, Shirdi, पुणे एंड रत्नागिरी. ठीक है, अगेन आई विल से इट अगेन, प्लीज डू रिवाइज. एटलीस्ट जो रिसेंट आप लोग पढ़ रहे हो उसको तो मत भूलिए. नेक्स्ट इज चाइनाज मैन्ड स्पेसक्राफ्ट एंड मून लैंडर नेम्स. ठीक है, एंड दिस इज मैन्ड स्पेसक्राफ्ट, लोग जाएंगे मून पर. ओके, सो स्पेसशिप नेम इज मेंगजू ड्रीम वेसल इन चाइनीज एंड लैंडर नेम इज लान्ये embracing the moon. Next is in sports news, International Basketball Federation FIBA Asia Cup qualifier game, India was defeated by Iran. Next is IIMC Alumni Awards. So Alumni of the Year award recipient, film director VR Agnihotri. Okay, so this happened in New Delhi. Lifetime Achievement Award, newsreader Simon Khanna. Journalism Award, Bernard Vivian Fernandez. ठीक है. Next is Goodfellow Classic, a PSA Challenger squash event was won by Abhay Singh. He was ranked 6th in the world. He defeated Elliot Morris of Wales. Indian National Car Racing Championship. Okay, the winner is Jaden Rahman Parriott and Abhay Mohan in context of MRF Formula 1500 category. So this car racing championship happened in Chennai. Okay, next is Indian archers' success in Baghdad. Deepika Kumar returned to international competition, secured 2 gold medals for India. Okay. And in men's category, B. Dheeraj claimed the title by beating Tarundeep Kai. Okay. So Pramod Bhagat of India clinched gold in SS6 category of NSDF Royal Beach Cliff BWF champion para badminton world championship in Thailand. Obituaries: Kumar Sahani, a prominent figure in India's parallel cinema, died, and the ghazal icon Pankaj Udas also passed away recently, as even talked about by Prime Minister also. Okay, so this is all for today. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, we'll wind up this session. Do we need to cram up previous year budget and reports as well as see, with respect to cramming, you do not need to cram the data of previous year reports. ठीक है, आप क्रैम मत करिए, but I am saying it is not harmful to read about what previous year reports highlights were. अब देखो मैं बताता हूँ उससे फायदा क्या होता है. अगर आप प्रीवियस अभी देखो, अभी एग्जाम का ना नोटिफिकेशन आया ना कुछ आया, तो इफ एट दिस पर्टिकुलर पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम इवन दैट रिपोर्ट इज नॉट अराइव्ड, अगर आप पिछले रिपोर्ट के एटलीस्ट हाइलाइट्स पढ़ लोगे, देन यू गेट टू अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट आर द क्रिटिकल हाइलाइट्स दैट यू नीड टू रिवाइज इन द रीसेंट रिपोर्ट. ठीक है, तो आपको वो सारी चीजें पहले ही पता होंगी, तो इट विल सेव ह्यूज अमाउंट ऑफ टाइम व्हेन यू विल बी डूइंग दिस, बिकॉज आप लोग को पता लग जाएगा कि ओके दिस इज द metric that we need to do, and this you will be get to know via previous year questions कि previous year questions पे क्या क्या metric usually पूछे जाते हैं, तो आपको पता रहेगा. So this is one thing. The next thing is, if you have a look on previous year data and whenever you look the new year data, then you also get to understand the trends that what happened in the previous case, and you also know the new trends. So how this will benefit you? Obviously you know the previous year, but obviously whenever you will be doing descriptive answer writing, तो आपको इस साल का डेटा तो पता ही है, you can always talk about the trends point. in the data, which nobody will be discussing apart from you. ठीक है? So FPI and FDI, there are various differences, but if I tell you in short brief, then you can at least say FPI is a short-term foreign investment mostly done to, make returns, whereas FDI is a long-term foreign investment which involves setting up of offices, involves technology transfer, and involves business operations. अब एग्जाम्पल अगर मैं आपको दूं तो थिंक अबाउट दैट मॉर्गन स्टैनली और any Goldman Sachs, take example of that. Investment banker in Goldman Sachs is, if they invest, let's say 10 crores in HDFC Bank, okay, and after some time they take back their money after making, let's say, 10% return. So this is what you call FPI, foreign portfolio investment. But if Tesla puts money into a new plant, a new factory that they will be establishing in India, okay, or if a Tesla wants to collaborate with, let's say, Tata Motors, okay, and they jointly establish a factory where Tesla owns 50% of that factory, so that you will be calling FDI, foreign direct investment, okay. And if you check in context of percentage, that up to 9.99%, if there are investments by foreign investors, that you will be calling FPI. If it is more than that, even 10% or more, then you will call it FDI. Okay. Any other question? Chalo, thank you guys for joining. We'll meet in the next session. Thank you.